19th, as over the weekend we saw the Milwaukee Bucks take game number 5 to put themselves in the driver's seat for Tuesday night's game, which goes back to the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. That was a big deal. We had gunshots at a Major League Baseball game. Shannon Salty Sweeney, crazy weekend. Lots going on in the world of sports, but a big week in sports about to hit us this week.
I've been waiting for this week, I think, along with everyone else. Not only is it one step closer to what is, I think, by most seen as the official start of the football season, the football year with training camp, but also the Olympics are finally here. We've been talking about it so much. I saw plenty of videos over the weekend of athletes who have already entered the village and kind of getting an inside look at that. It's all very exciting, and you're right, a fantastic week for sports. And, Hard Knocks crew starts filming the Dallas Cowboys or whatever.
Yes, and that Cowboys press conference on Wednesday. I'm a Cowboys freak, as you know, Shannon. I know you are too. So it's always must-see TV for me to see Jerry Jones. I go to DallasCowboys.com typically to watch that press conference. So it'll be Jerry and Steven and Mike McCarthy, and hope springs eternal at the beginning of the football season. I'm always believing this is the year the Cowboys win the division, go deep into the playoffs, and maybe go to the Super Bowl. But we shall see if it plays out that way.
Now, we know we're getting Jerry Jones this week. How much do you put into what he says, particularly these days, or is it all about the entertainment value?
It's both. You've got to kind of, after all these years, we know who Jerry Jones is. So we know that what he says, he's seeing the world through his lens. And I think, granted, he's like Barnum and Bailey. He wants to sell tickets and wants you to come see the circus and wants you to get excited. So we know part of his job is to get us excited for what he sees. I think even if he had some doubts, he's not going to say it. But he's kind of, it's weird. He's kind of on the same page I am at this time of year. You've been talking about Dak Prescott and this offense, and I've been talking about Dan Quinn, a new defensive coordinator, and some new players for the defense. So, he's going to be optimistic, and I'm going to be optimistic until I see otherwise.
And that's fair. And as Cowboys fans, we have no reason not to be optimistic. We have all the intentions of going to the Super Bowl this year with an MVP caliber quarterback.
Yeah, well, I thought you were being facetious when you said we have no reason not to be optimistic, other than having not gone to the Super Bowl since the 95-96 season, which many of our listeners were not born by at that point. But yeah,
it'll happen.
I hope you're right.
Probably. Maybe.
I hope you're right. Well, the British Open, Colin Morikawa comes from behind and wins the thing in the final round. In our fantasy competition, Tanner Carlson picked Colin Morikawa with the 11th pick in our 12-player draft. However, if we didn't have the rule that says if you nail the winner, you're the winner. You had Jordan Spieth, who came in second. You had John Rahm, who was very high as well. You did quite well with the players that you selected, other than winning the darn thing.
Yeah, it was weird because we give the win to Mr. Tanner for picking the winner, as we should. But typically I'm not, cheering against your players. I'm more cheering for my players. But in this case, I felt like I had to go against Colin, but he was just so relaxed throughout that final round. Spieth made a couple of errors that could have put him in a better position, especially after Saturday. But it was, I think, a fantastic round for all of us. I think we had most of the top 10.
Yes.
Out. And so I think I saw you mention something on Twitter about how we should start a gambling group or something for golf. And I don't know that's wrong. I don't know that's wrong.
Yeah, because at one point Tanner posted the leaderboard, and the top 5, we had somebody, we had the top 5 picked. So yeah. So anyway, we'll talk a little British Open. We'll be joined by our golf guru, Andy Everett, at 8:35. In fact, going to be a huge 8 o'clock hour. One of our favorites and one of the most locked in Texas Longhorn reporters, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. Shannon, not only coming off a big week with Big 12 media days and the Longhorn football team and everything we learned from Coach Sark, but a big weekend for Texas Longhorn basketball. Not a lot of people thought that on Monday we'd be excited, even more excited about Longhorn basketball, but here we are.
I mean, it's so strange that, neither of their seasons have started. It feels like Sark and Beard are almost competing for, I don't know, the best or most noteworthy incoming coach, because now Chris Beard over the weekend gets another transfer, and he has now 6 of the top 31 transfers in the country.
Wow.
And he's yet to take the court as the head coach of the University of Texas. So he is doing incredible things. You mentioned Taylor just coming back from media days in Dallas, where she met with not only Sark, but the rest of the Big 12 coaches and the players they brought. Bijan Robinson, who was representative from Texas, of course, a big name for lots of the awards coming up this season, the running back. And interesting what he had to say about Reggie Bush and why he wears number 5 and that relationship. So that should be interesting. And then also her Super Bowl prediction. I know that in Dave Campbell's
That's right.
magazine there, you were going to ask her about that. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, I have the magazine with me, and I saw you told me this last week. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. There you are on Facebook Live and on our live video feed. It's in her hand. Mine is in my little satchel here. I can't reach it from my chair, but I'll be whipping mine out here when we interrogate Taylor Estes for her coverage in Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. And I want to know how she feels, because they picked Texas to go 7-5.
Yeah.
I want to know how she feels as a contributor to that magazine.
She'll keep it real.
Yeah, she will.
She has no fear.
Yeah. I mean, I would cancel my subscription to Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine if I had a subscription, but I don't have a subscription.
So I told you when I got it that I had gone to check our station mail and it had arrived. So I don't know who checks your mail at your station, but you should maybe get on.
I should,
They may have taken your copy.
Somebody scarfed it up. Yeah. So I had to pay whatever it is, $7.50 at HEB. I had to pay cash money for mine. You got yours for free as a member of the working media. I got
did have
nothing.
to pay for my Phil Steele though, and that did come in the mail.
Very
I'm
nice.
excited to mark them all up this week.
Yeah,
sticky notes.
Back in the day, Dave Campbell used to do a Dallas Cowboys magazine in the actually as late as the late 60s, throughout the 70s, and I think even into the early 80s, in addition to Texas football, which is a huge thing. And old people like me listening right now will remember this. But so you would see not only Dave Campbell's Texas football, which would give you your high school and your college, and they'd cover the Oilers and the Cowboys, as they still have a little story on the Cowboys and the Texans modern day. But there would be, and I still have a few of them at home, Dave Campbell's Dallas Cowboy, and it would be like the 1975 Outlook, which was cool. But anyway, I miss that. I miss
wonder if like things have gotten too big with the kind of stats we take now.
Yeah.
Versus back then, to where he had to choose one.
That's you would think that anything, if they allowed him to publish that, anything Dallas Cowboys is gold. You would think you would make money off of that. It is 6:20. We're going to do this. We continue to do this. I think this is our 3rd week out of 4. Don't hold me to that because I don't have that in front of me. But so I know we're going the rest of this week, and I think we're doing next week as well. It's the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. Over the 4 weeks, we're giving away $218,000 cash. Somebody wins that money. My philosophy, it may as well be you. We do this twice during this show at 6:20 and 7:20. We do it 12 times throughout the day on the 20s. You got multiple chances to get your name into the hat and try to win $1,000. We're going to give you a keyword now and a place to text that keyword. You do it, and you're in the running for the money. Here it comes. Now, Louisa, Michelle, Jason, Neil.
Bills to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's Bills to 200.
Bills to 200. You mentioned the Olympics, Shannon, and I'm even hearing, first of all, over the weekend, and this is a big story in the United States and around the world, this Delta variant of the coronavirus. The Surgeon General now says that he supports municipalities if they choose to bring mask mandates back. Los Angeles County, the biggest county in the country, started that late last. Actually, it went into effect yesterday on Sunday, but they made the announcement late last week. We talked about that in Tokyo. The first athletes who have already arrived in Tokyo, a couple of them over the weekend, tested positive for COVID-19. And even though, as you mentioned, Shannon, the Olympics are set to get underway this week, and we fully expect that to happen, but there's still even rumbling that, the Olympics still could be in jeopardy. They might even start, and we could still have problems just because COVID with this Delta variant especially looks like it might be coming back with a vengeance.
We keep referencing the NBA bubble because that's essentially what they're creating, except it's just on such a greater scale. And they do have to go out to their separate venues and all of those. It's going to be, I think, really hard to escape without anybody getting the virus. And hopefully if someone does get it, they are A, vaccinated, and B, are able to be put in a place where they don't perhaps give that to someone else. And it's also heartbreaking to see all these stories come out. I mean, even just from the American athletes that are no longer going to be able to compete. And I don't know what their vaccination history is, but kudos to them for pulling out and not attempting to fight it, because it's got to be hard to say I have to let go of my dream because of this thing.
Yeah. And especially, as you well know, and we've talked about, this Olympics was delayed a year. It was supposed to be a year ago. So for those athletes that probably were very disappointed a year ago and yet got their hopes up and achieved the opportunity to compete in these Olympics 1 year later in 2021, to then have it go away as it is for some of them is got to be just so heartbreaking. But Shannon, I got to ask you, so we've got Olympics this week, NBA finals. We will determine an NBA champion this week as early as Tuesday night. If the Bucks win, they're up 3-2 on the Phoenix Suns. We talked about Cowboys camp beginning on Wednesday, at least with the press conference, the State of the Cowboys press conference. But I wonder, is all of this overshadowed by Space Jam 2?
No.
Did you watch Space Jam 2 over the weekend?
I did not, and I was so disappointed. I got home yesterday, and I get a bark box for my dog every month, which has some toys, and it's always themed, and it's usually really cute, and she loves it. And I open the box, and what do I see but LeBron James's face in plush form, along with Bugs Bunny and Tweety Bird. I want a refund, Chris.
You say that like it's
a
bad
sign
thing.
Up for that. If I wanted a really bad toy based off of a really bad movie, I would go through the McDonald's drive-thru and order a kid's meal.
You're saying really bad movie. You haven't even seen it.
It has 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews are awful, and it didn't even win the box office on its opening weekend. Bad movie.
Box office doesn't necessarily mean the best. I watched only because I ran out of time on Saturday morning. I watched the first hour. I thought it was fine. I mean, I didn't hate it. It was funny. It had moments for kids. There were some life lessons about working hard to achieve your dreams. If you want to be the best you can be for kids, it was
basketball in outer space.
Yes, well, and it was funny. It's like, so I'm watching it, and my wife walks through the living room at one point where one of the characters is going, LeBron James, the greatest basketball player, a great entrepreneur, a great businessman, a great family man. And my wife goes, well, that's not self-aggrandizing at all, is it? I mean, it is very, very self-aggrandizing to know that LeBron James made this movie.
I'm so happy for him that he finally gets a chance to be the center of attention and to earn a paycheck, because Lord knows he deserves it.
And maybe the bar was so low for me, Shannon. Maybe that I don't know that I'm going to say I liked it, but I
You know,
I didn't dislike it, and I planned on. I just ran out of time over the weekend. I planned on watching the second half, so I'm an hour in. I think it said on my TV it's an hour 55 for the whole movie, so I'm about halfway through.
and I've got nothing against LeBron James, the actor, because I think
The
he's
actor,
proven he puts in the work for everything he does, and I've seen him, appear in things before, and he's
yeah,
been pretty good. But it's just the whole like him trying to be Michael and sequels these days, like they are either hit or miss. There really isn't an
yeah.
in between, and you have to work. And this thing has just been, in the works for so long now, and it's like, ugh, just no, pass.
Yeah, he did seem very credible as an actor. I wasn't watching going, oh my God, that's some bad acting. It was like, yeah, this is credible. So yeah, he seemed fine in that role. But I mean, playing
The role as himself.
yeah, the role as LeBron
That's typically
James
what he plays.
playing basketball in space. Not that hard in the cartoon universe. All right, coming up, so much going on. We will tell you what the poll question is. We'll do that in the next segment. We will introduce Dave Ayler, who, true to form, is wearing a Metal Monday t-shirt, and you'll find out what it is, and you can even see it on the live feed. I want to welcome everybody in on the live feed, including Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan, joining us this morning, and it's evening in Tokyo. So thank you, Taro, and everybody else joining us on Facebook Live. We'll see what you're saying to us here, and not just on Facebook Live. That's just one way you can catch the live video feed. We've got a YouTube link to it. You can get there on Twitch. So lots of ways to participate on the live feed. As we mentioned, Taylor Estes from Horns 24/7. She's the managing editor. Talk all things Horns with us just after 8 o'clock. Golf guru Andy Everett on the British Open and more. High Five play of the day is next. A little bit later, Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays. Lots coming at you. Lots going on this Monday, July 19th in the world of sports. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. It's the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Oh, that's loud. Oh, that's loud. Welcome everybody in on Facebook Live or Jason Paniagua, in your case, on YouTube. Anthony Del Toro, John Paul Albert, Dave Emilio Castanuela, Michelle Johnson from Marysville, Kansas, Ralph Balderas, John Williams, Hector Gomez, Steve Duraco, who had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday +1, Steve Duraco. Buenos dias. Jason Paniagua, looks like you got in here first. Okay, Anthony says, I watched Space Jam with my 16-year-old daughter this weekend, and she actually liked it. Me, on the other hand, didn't like it as well as how much he gloats in it. LOL. Yeah, I mean, maybe my expectation was low. I kind of liked it. Yeah, I didn't love it. It's not the greatest movie ever, but it ain't bad. All right. I needs me some caffeine. Michelle says, happy birthday, Steve, from Marysville, Kansas. I saw Steve yesterday. I had to deliver my birthday gift to him. Got my own coffee. Gonna go nuke it in the microwave. Woo! Woo! I'll be back in about 90 seconds with hot coffee. Yeah, Louisa Keldon Johnson. We're going to talk about him here in a moment. He was pretty spectacular. Let me find. Dave Emilio says, I saw LeBron at the finals Saturday night, probably looking to steal more talent to further his ego. Yeah, he did say he was there to support Chris Paul because he said Chris Paul went to his first finals. Yeah, Michelle, I do. I have my Longhorn cutout behind me, which is Sam Ellinger. We need a current player, and I still have J.J. Watt as a Houston Texan. So Cardboard Breggy, Alex Bregman. Does LeBron have a tequila? I know Scottie Pippen's got a bourbon. Yeah, I do. I need to somehow get another one. I guess Bijan Robinson. Thank God for coffee at 6:38 in the morning. Here we go. Sounds like metal to me. On a Metal Monday, Chris Duel show along with Shannon Salty Sweeney, and wearing his Metal Monday t-shirt, the lovely and talented Dave Ayler, soundscape stylist. Dave, who were we just listening to?
That was Megadeth for Symphony of Destruction, which is pretty much sums up this morning so far. Just a disaster. Ever since even the drive-in was a disaster.
Well, you and I, because you brought it up to me, I think we had some of the same issues driving in. Shannon, of course, if you're new to the show, in Austin, and Dave and I are in San Antonio. So on the way to this studio, which is Stone Oak Parkway and Highway 281 on the far north side of San Antonio, what was your experience driving in this morning, Dave?
Let's see, our intersection was closed down because I don't know, they're repaving it or something.
Yeah.
So we had to go about 10 miles out of our way just to get to our driveway, which is partially blocked by the trucks.
Yes.
So we had to drive around those, which I'm not too sure if I was driving illegally around them or not, but I got here.
Yeah.
And I was running stoplights because I was already late to begin with.
Yeah. And that's when you work so early in the morning, you time it, you know how long it takes you to get to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you exit to go to your work and that intersection is blocked due to construction, and they're going to reroute you for an extra 10 minutes, that can be an issue.
And then I get here and it's been technical problems since I walked in the door at both stations I work at in the morning.
That's right.
So,
he works at two he's already, by the time Dave starts this show at 6 a.m., he's already worked another radio station.
This is my second show of the morning by 6 a.m.
So
But we're getting there. Most of the problems, I think we've gotten past some of them. Still working on a few other ones, though.
So when I exited to come to work at 281 in Stone Oak Parkway, so that's blocked. So I start going forward up the access road, which was 2 lanes, which was cutting down to 1 lane. So I had to get over to the right. And there is this SUV who's way behind me, but who doesn't want me to get into the lane that I'm entitled to, because it goes from 2 lanes to 1 lane. So he comes flying, trying to get there before I can. And I have to veer to the left, almost into a freaking barricade. He runs me off the road at 5:15 in the morning.
It's because he was late for work too. With all the stupid destruction, or it's not even construction, it's destruction that he had to drive through.
So I almost drove right into a barricade because this idiot couldn't let me in. Yeah, I mean, when I looked in my rear view mirror, he's like 9 car lengths back, but hitting his accelerator because he sees that I need to get into that lane. Bastard. Not that I'm bitter. Sorry,
no, be bitter. Be bitter.
I don't want to. Yeah,
it's a bitter Monday.
We do have a poll question, Shannon, based upon before we get to the high. We'll feel better. We'll give somebody a high five, and things are going to get better really quickly. I'll get through this bitterness here pretty quickly.
Asking today, which sporting event are you most looking forward to this week? It's interesting because we usually ask about the weekend, but it's so exciting that during the summer we now have sports during the week to look forward to. We've got Cowboys training camp currently tied and leading the way with the Tokyo Olympics, and not a lot of people excited about the NBA Finals.
Wow, that's interesting.
I think they're over it. And I don't know if that's because maybe at this point, you mentioned what it was, 82% of teams that win Game 5 to take a 3-2 lead.
Yes.
End up winning, so maybe they feel like that's in the bag. Why put your time and energy towards that? But Tokyo Olympics and Cowboys, I mean, that's where I am right now.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the Olympics.
Yeah, and I'm such a Cowboys freak of all of the possibilities. I voted Cowboys. The highlight of my week's going to be the Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Mike McCarthy State of the Cowboys press conference, high noon-ish Oxnard time on Wednesday, and I'm sure on Thursday's show we'll bring you all the coverage on that. And, of course, leading up to that on Wednesday, we'll remind you that it's coming. So, all right. Let's feel a little bit better about things. Somebody deserves a high five. How about the high five play of the day? appropriately brought to you by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area. Shannon knows it well. She hangs out there. She has watch parties there. She gets involved in axe throwing and laser tag there. They got great food. They got great food and drink specials. High Five, 2 locations in Austin. And Shannon, High Five has a bit of an Olympic theme going for it this morning.
Yes, it does. With so many COVID cases now kind of hitting just U.S. athletes across the board, of course, headlines of Beasley, right? Beasley got the COVID, so he was out. And then Kevin Love, there was talk that, he didn't have COVID, but that I guess they let him say he was leaving the team, which is a nice way of saying you were kicked off the team.
Yes.
But we had replacements, one of them which being Spurs' own Keldon Johnson. And as the Spurs man, Chris, it's only right that I let you talk about his dominance and when he showed up and made his Team USA debut this weekend.
My goodness, Keldon Johnson, a star is born last night in the Olympics against Spain. First of all, a very big time, and I know it's exhibition, but Spain is the current defending world champion. So Spain is probably the best team you can test yourself against, at least at this point in an exhibition. And Team USA got the win last night over Spain, 83-76. And as you mentioned, Keldon Johnson joining the team because of those COVID replacements. So Keldon Johnson will now play for the Team USA. He will play in Tokyo as well. But last night, in just 17 minutes, Keldon Johnson scores 15 points. He was 7 of 9 from the field. He had 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block, and a team high plus minus. He had a plus minus of plus 18. So when Keldon Johnson was on the floor for Team USA, they performed better during his 17 minutes than at any other time with any other player specifically on the floor. A plus 18 for Keldon Johnson. And Shannon, what I love about this is not only is Keldon Johnson clearly, based on last night, going to contribute to Team USA, but just in his second year last year, he's a guy who is going to only get better as a Spur, as an NBA player, and playing with these great players on Team USA and playing against the best international competition in the world. I just think this is going to be a huge growth experience. You often wonder what an NBA player is going to do in the offseason. Is he going to work on his rebounding? Is he going to work on his free throws? Is he going to work on a new shot or a new move to become a better player? My goodness, in just beginning his third year in the NBA, what better place for the Spurs' Keldon Johnson to be than on Team USA, playing with the best, watching the best, learning from the best, playing against the best. I just think it's going to be a huge experience for him that ultimately will benefit the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, I'm happy for the guy. It had to be hard to be him hitting the floor just from all of the outside noise that was coming in, right? I mean, everyone was kind of upset when he was one of the ones named to join the USA roster. A lot of people wanted to see Trae Young. They thought he's more flashy. He's better known. But they needed pieces that would work, right? I mean, they've been struggling. And so the best thing to do is find pieces that are going to work in the system. And what better guy to get than a guy who Pop knows very well and knows how to coach. And maybe people see that as a bit of, he's getting his own guy. But clearly, what he did on the floor against Spain, it's working well.
Yeah.
It's like he's been practicing with them all along. So I think it's the best thing for Team USA. And I'm glad he was able to prove that. And against Spain, who, thanks to the Powell brothers, have been known to be, a strong force within the FIBA world. What it is interesting that, Paul Gasol, 41 now?
41, still playing. Which I think is cool. I've always liked Pau Gasol.
Cool.
I like that a lot.
Of okay, you probably should have won that.
Yeah.
Right. Is the other Gasol brother? I didn't get to catch this game. He's on there too, right?
I'm going to have to check the box score to see if Marc Gasol was playing.
Mark.
Marky Mark, very nice.
But it is cool that Paul's playing. How long has he been out of the NBA now?
Gosh, a year ago he was with, believe it or not, he finished his career with the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was injured before last year's playoffs. So a year ago he started the season with the Milwaukee Bucks, but by the time the playoffs arrived, he was not with them because I forget, I don't know if it was hamstring or what it was, but something knocked him out for the season, and he was just turning 40 a year ago. So that was it for his NBA career. So that was it for Pau Gasol. But I like the fact that he was still, is still playing for Spain. He's a very, very good guy. So, and I'm looking now at the schedule for Tokyo, and Team USA will be in Group A, and it looks like their first game will be this coming Sunday, July 25th against France. So, going to be interesting to see.
And his tribe.
Yeah, Tony, as you mentioned, Tony Parker not playing, but still very, very involved with France and with
Manu,
France basketball.
With Argentina over the weekend.
Yeah.
He's also involved. But now we see Paul Gasol playing, and I'm like, okay, what are you guys doing?
Good
Tony,
point.
Manu, suit up.
Yeah. You got to wonder. You got to wonder. And probably, I mean, both of those guys know, I mean, clearly if they could play and if the team needed them, they would play. So obviously, I believe Tony realizes that the young players, everybody younger than he is on that roster, obviously, are better and in a better position to play than he is for France. And for Manu, he probably feels the same way for Argentina. But I want to go back to something you did allude to, and I'm sure there will be people, because you're right. The national among basketball fans, and probably international, as I see Taro Kotani on our live video feed joining us from Tokyo this morning. A lot of people wanted Trae Young, as you mentioned. Trae Young, the new hot thing, had a great playoff run for the Atlanta Hawks. So there will probably be some people, Shannon, as you mentioned, Pop, picking Keldon Johnson, little favoritism, picking a Spur. I think people who know Pop as we do here in South and Central Texas, Pop isn't going to play favorites. Pop is going to go with the players he believes are the best players to win the games for him. And I, as you mentioned, with that stellar performance last night, Keldon Johnson proved he was ready for prime time.
Yeah, if Pop was playing favorites, you would have had someone from his Spurs roster on Team USA before there were any holes that needed to be filled.
True. And if, again, the fact at this late hour, it does mean something that Keldon Johnson knows Pop, and he knows the schemes that Pop runs, and they know each other. So for both, in both directions, it was a known commodity for Pop to get Keldon Johnson, and Keldon Johnson, having played for Pop now for 2 years, kind of knows what it's like to play for Coach Popovich.
Now, with this late hour, you said their first game is Sunday.
And
they have to get going here pretty soon, right?
I believe they fly out either, I think I heard Tuesday, which is tomorrow, they fly out. So I think today, they played last night. I think they packed their bags today. And I think, unless I have that wrong, I think I read they fly out tomorrow. But
it takes a long time to just get over there.
That
adjust.
That Pacific Ocean is pretty big. It's not like flying to Hawaii. Yeah. So going to be very, very interesting to see all of the Olympics. And again, as we mentioned earlier, and we'll talk more about it, COVID may wreak havoc on these Olympics. Already a couple of players in place, Olympians in place, have tested positive. We will see how much of a story that is. And I'm seeing Taro Kotani writing from Tokyo. Boris Diaw, former Spur, former NBA player Boris Diaw, is playing for France. He is already in Tokyo for France. So Pop going to get reunited with Boris Diaw on the court. Going to be interesting. And he obviously a good friend, very good friend of Tony Parker. So That's a fun storyline. That's part of the fun, just all the NBA players on these international teams. And like Powell and like Boris Diaw, even former NBA players, but those we are very familiar with. Lots more coming up. We're going to cover everything in the NBA Finals, Major League Baseball, NFL football, the Olympics, and more. Coming up as well in the 7 o'clock hour, the Salty Shakedown, and another shot for you at $1,000, the grand in your hand cash contest. With you till 9, it's the Chris Duel Show. All right. Okay, remind me what the audio was that you had. Three cuts on Morikawa. Okay. Okay. So which way you want to go? The final call first and then the press conference? Okay, I missed the cut sheet. Yeah, so the cut sheet's in this stack. For some reason, I'll keep looking. Okay. Yeah, we'll probably, I mean, they're all, I still don't have the cut sheet, but I mean, we'll probably play them all. They're not that long, are they? I just found it. Oh, yeah, gosh. 22 and 19 and 11. Yeah, we'll play them all. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yes. Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you. Okay. I think Luis Scola is playing for Argentina, Anthony. I think I heard that. Who won? Okay, yeah, since you were there, we should talk to you about that as well.
It's basically from the TV feed, so it's the ring announcer saying that's a draw, then some commentary by the TV guys.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I'm thinking Morikawa and then you and the boxing, since you were there. Yeah, Marcus All did play for Spain. $10 points for Marcus All. Powell had 8. Ricky Rubio, 23. Willie Hernan Gomez, another NBA player. So they've got they got the Gasol brothers. They've got Ricky Rubio. They got Willie Hernan Gomez. So, yeah, that's a formidable team. Damian Lillard with 19 to lead Team USA. Keldon Johnson's 15 was the second highest score. Durant had 14 in 30 minutes. Keldon's 15 was in 17 minutes. Yeah, Anthony Huerta saying it's been reported the rest of the coaching staff was pulling for Keldon Johnson to be a replacement on that Olympic team, not just Coach Greg Popovich. Yeah, and unlike Trae Young, Keldon Johnson was on that select team, so he was working out with them. So they did kind of know what they had there. Here we go.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is Monday. It is a big week in sports as the Olympics will get underway. The NBA will crown its champion as early as Tuesday night, which is tomorrow night. Game number 6 in Milwaukee. Bucks will be at home at the Fiserv Forum with an opportunity to win that series over the Phoenix Suns. Of course, the Suns will try to force a 7th game, which would be back in Phoenix, which would be a huge advantage, I believe, for the Phoenix Suns in a 7th game, as typically the home team has the big advantage in a game 7. And of course, the Dallas Cowboys on Wednesday, the State of the Cowboys press conference at Oxnard, the site of the Dallas Cowboys training camp. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. And Shannon, we talked about it. Colin Morikawa winning the British Open. My boy Oosthuizen, and I always ask you to pronounce his name for me. How do you pronounce his name?
Oosthuizen.
Oosthuizen. So I was close.
It sounds much more fluid, yes.
Louis Oosthuizen. Yeah. Anyway, he led the first 3 rounds. And notice I did not get cocky on Twitter. I say, hey, I'm winning. No, because I knew if he's my guy, he's probably going to lose. So Morikawa came back and won the thing in the final round. And actually, Dave Ayler, we have the sound of Colin Morikawa, the final call, as he wins the Open Championship, as they like to call it, not the British Open, but I say British Open because I'm an American, at Royal St. George's. Here's the call.
Didn't take long for Colin Morikawa to put his name on the claret jug. 1-1 at the Open.
That was the big win for Colin Morikawa, and afterwards he talked about winning. He's only 24 years old. He talked about winning at this early point in his career.
So at 24, it's so hard to look back at the short 2 years that I've been a pro and see what I've done, because I want more. It's so early on, and I enjoy these moments, and I love it. And I think I need to teach myself to embrace it a little more, maybe spend a few extra days sitting back and drinking out of this. But yeah, I need to. I just want more.
And he did say drinking out of this, didn't he, Shannon? Did he?
Is that one you? I don't know that one's a drinkable one.
That's a good question.
If you try hard enough.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of drinking, Colin Morikawa talks about what's next for him after winning the Open Championship.
We've been staying at the hotel right by the course. Every night I see all the caddies drink, and I'm like, man, I really want to drink, but I hold back. I hold back on tournament week, so.
Let rip tonight, yeah?
We'll see. Yeah.
Let loose tonight.
Yeah, we got to make a flight, but yeah, we'll be fine.
That's kind of an interesting post golf championship comment. Wow, I'm watching the caddies drinking, and I'm just thinking, man, I really want to have a drink.
Listen, this dude is special. Okay, he won the 2020 PGA Championship. It was his first major. Now he's won the Open, so he's 2 for 8 on majors he's played in.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's 1 in 4 shot. It's like a Tom Brady going to
Yeah.
the Bulls. Like a 1 in 4 shot that he's gonna win a major when he steps on to the course. And that's pretty incredible. And he mentioned that he had to make a flight. Well, he will be representing the United States of America as part of that foursome for the golfing world in the Olympics. So that is super exciting. I'm not sure if that's exactly where he was heading. But I think that's what's next for him. And after this performance, I would say he's the favorite of Team USA, which also includes Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, and Bryson DeChambeau, who, take it or leave it. So I'm excited for him. 24 years old.
Yeah.
He's always been in the running. He was a great pick by Tanner, certainly making a name for himself now with his second major victory.
Well, and as you mentioned, Shannon, winning 2 out of 8 majors, and he is only 24. We know there will never be another Tiger Woods, but some of us are wondering, is there going to be a golfer to emerge as kind of more dominant than the others? And you got to wonder if Colin Morikawa, who is only 24, if he can be better at age 25 and age 26 and age 27. I mean, this is a guy who, if he continues to either be as good as he is, I mean, the heck with improving, although that would be phenomenal if he improved, but if he can maintain the level that he's played golf at for the next few years, I mean, my goodness, he's going to continue to be a force to be reckoned with.
He's already made a huge name for himself. And again, someone to look for during these Olympics. Would be amazing if he could bring home the gold, because I think the last Olympics, U.S. brought home the bronze. And I believe it was the PGA's favorite dad, run by Skechers. His name is escaping me now, but it wasn't. I think last year was interesting because, or last Olympics, because there was that weird virus that was going on that now seems like next to nothing compared to COVID, and now we have COVID. So I'm really excited to watch him take the field, and I think Justin Thomas will do well. I don't really care about Bryson DeChambeau. I'm not very happy about him repping the U.S. Even though he technically does it every time he takes the field.
Yeah, apparently DeChambeau had a really good final round yesterday, something like a 65. I mean, the rest of his tournament not so good, but
imagine what happens when you calm down.
Yeah,
just calm down.
Yeah, gonna be. And you mentioned, golf at the Olympics. I mean, my goodness, so many things to watch in these Olympics. And as much as I'm a football freak, and the biggest thing on my radar is the start of Dallas Cowboys training camp this week, still, man, those Olympics are going to be phenomenal. Meanwhile, over the weekend, Shannon, our boy Dave Ayler was at maybe the biggest sporting event in South Texas. We talked about it a little bit on the show last week, the big boxing match. This was at the AT&T Center, I do believe. Is that correct, Dave?
Correct.
AT&T Center?
Yeah.
Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. And what was it like being? I saw you post on Facebook. You looked like you had some pretty good seats.
Yeah, well, I was sitting on press row.
Oh, that's right.
I was the third table in the back from the ring.
Sweet.
Which was nice. And saw Derek White was there from the Spurs. He was sitting just on the other side of the press row from me.
Very cool.
And
did you say, hey, Derek White, Dave Ayler?
No, he was with his girlfriend and hanging out with some other people.
Okay.
But no, it was a great night. Had probably not a sellout, but pretty close. Probably 18,000, 19,000.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And they were loud. Some great fans there.
See, I was wondering, in the era of COVID, and again, I'm one of those guys. I don't, with the Delta variant, I don't want to go into a crowd yet. So I wondered what the attendance would be, and I was a little concerned. San Antonio is a big city for boxing on pay-per-view, and we always rack up big numbers. We're one of the biggest cities in America when it comes to pay-per-view for boxing. And back in the day, when Jesse James Leha was fighting at the Alamo Dome for the title, we would get a lot of people in attendance, but a lot of those fights now, obviously, and I get it for obvious reasons, are going to Las Vegas, where we used to have some big fights here in San Antonio. So I kind of wanted to see a big crowd. And from your firsthand knowledge, it looks like we had one.
Yeah, a great crowd. They were loud. They were totally into it. Brian Castano is from Argentina. Big Argentina contingent there for him that were right down by his corner. And so then they were really loud. I've got the final call here.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know how this fight turned out, well, before we talk about it, we'll let you hear it as it happened. I believe this is from Showtime.
Yes.
The final call.
Right.
Here's the final decision of this boxing match, which was going to unify multiple belts and multiple boxing organizations between Brian Castano and Jermell Charlo. Here it is.
The decision is a split decision draw.
So both fighters kept their own belts.
A split decision draw. So now what? They're going to have to just fight again and do this again, do a rematch, right?
I'm thinking it's going to be probably a big time pay-per-view in the winter, probably for a rematch, because it was close. Castano won the early rounds. Charlo won the later rounds. So I had Charlo winning it. Me and one of the guys that was sitting next to me, we were scoring it ourselves, and we had Charlo win by like 2 points. It was close, but yeah, split decision draw.
So you disagree with the split decision?
Yeah, I would have went Charlo and I had him ahead by like 1 or 2 points. It was close. So I was looking at it. It could go, it still could go either way, but the split decision draw.
I just want to know if you drank.
No, I was sitting on press row, so I couldn't drink.
You can sneak. You can have a little.
Go take a break.
Yeah,
break.
I abstained.
You were good.
Yeah, I was a good boy all night.
You can tell us for real off air.
No, I'd tell you if I was drinking it there, I wouldn't care. But nope, I didn't.
Now, Shannon,
I wasn't paying the $10 beer price or whatever they charge at the AT&T Center.
now on YouTube right now, Shannon, if you look at who's joined us, I don't know if it's the Brian Castano, but Brian Castano is now with us on YouTube on the video feed. Don't know if it's the guy who was boxing, but if it is, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That
would really, he fought a good fight.
That would be really cool.
So I picked him to lose.
Yeah,
I picked him to lose, but he fought a great fight.
very, very cool. So do you think, based on the crowd that you saw, Dave, you think San Antonio is warranted more big time boxing matches? Sounds like we had a pretty good crowd at the AT&T Center.
Yeah, we definitely deserve a pay-per-view because that was on Showtime, and if you had Showtime, you got it for free.
Yeah,
it wasn't a pay-per-view or anything. But great fans there, and they were even the Argentinians for Castano. They were totally into it, and it was
a lot of. I know when London would play, you'd see a lot of Argentina flags. You see a lot of Argentinian flags. In the crowd.
They were sitting right behind his corner, and they were waving the flags and getting loud, and it was great fun.
Very cool.
And a lot since Charlo's from Houston, so a lot of people from Houston were there, and they were loud too.
Very cool. I mean, I get it. I know why a lot of those fights go to Vegas. I mean, Vegas is such an iconic place to have a big-time championship boxing match, which is what this was. But it's cool to see San Antonio, which is a big boxing town, kind of get on there. Did you see Jesse James Leha? I saw San Antonio's champion, the retired champion Jesse James Leha. Saw him posting about it on social media. He was there. It probably wasn't on press row, but I imagine Jesse James Layhaw had some pretty good seats.
Yeah, I did see him there. I didn't see your boy Floyd Mayweather either. I was looking for him. It's like, hey,
man,
he stood us up.
Yeah.
Let's start throwing hands at him. Hey, let's go.
Got some breaking Olympics news here. A member of the U.S. women's gymnastics team has tested positive for COVID-19 this morning. However, the gymnast has not been released. We don't know which one.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, and they are all fantastic. I think everyone in their mind would think Simone Biles would be the biggest hit, as she is the name and the face of that grouping, but something to pay attention to throughout the rest of the day, because I'm sure at some point that name will be revealed.
Well, and as you had told me over the weekend, Shannon, Coco Gauff was supposed to be she was going to lead Team USA in tennis. So Coco Gauff tested positive for COVID. So Coco Gauff withdrawing from the Olympics, and now a U.S. gymnast. And as you mentioned, Simone Biles is the face of maybe not only Team USA gymnastics, but maybe Team USA, if you don't count Kevin Durant and the basketball players.
Yes. It looks like it was an alternate. However, of course, they're all traveling together and spending time together. So, one person gets it. You kind of have to worry about the rest of the team, the rest of the group.
Yeah, see, that's what worried me about Bradley Beal when he got it for Team USA, because he had just been playing in that game. He was on the bench with his teammates.
All the sweat.
Yeah, the sweat, the practice, interacting with the teammates, team meals, hotels, elevators. So, yeah, if one of them gets it, it's time to get a little bit concerned. All right, 7:20 right now. We do this at 6:20 and 7:20. In fact, we do it throughout the day 12 times on the 20s. Give you a number of opportunities to win $1,000. It is the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. Somebody wins it. It may as well be you. You're going to get a keyword and a place to text that keyword for your chance to win $1,000. Here it is.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Text the nationwide keyword dollar to 200-200. You'll get a confirmation text and info. Standard data and message rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's dollar to 200-200.
And Shannon, and it's a sign of the times, and I guess we should have expected it, but with COVID seeming to be kind of rearing its ugly head once again, more than we had hoped. A lot of us felt very optimistic that things were opening up, certainly in the United States, that these Tokyo Olympics were able to go again. As we mentioned late last week, we found out that Los Angeles County, the largest county in America, was going back to an indoor mask mandate. Over the weekend, the United States Surgeon General saying it would be all right with the Surgeon General if municipalities decided to follow the lead of Los Angeles County and reestablish mask mandates indoors, because this Delta variant of the coronavirus is causing problems once again. Infections are up. And hospitalizations are up in all 50 states in the United States. But in this case, Shannon, you mentioned a gymnast now testing positive. And the Olympics haven't even begun yet. And we did hear yesterday that we had a couple of Olympians at the Olympic Village from the South African delegation test positive for the coronavirus. I got a bad sinking feeling that we're going to see a lot more of this throughout the Olympics.
I wish it wasn't this way, Chris.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't this way. It feels like we were reaching the finish line, and I'm hoping that these athletes that get there realize that getting there isn't the finish line, right? Like,
no.
You think you've done the hard part, but it probably is only harder now, because not only do you have to finally get to perform on this stage and at this level, but you've got to make it there and then make it through. So, I'll follow the guidelines that are in place. Hopefully you're vaccinated. Please, hopefully you're vaccinated. If you haven't, get one.
Well, and what, if you think about this, and I don't think this will happen, but I think, you think about a worst case scenario, which could be a major outbreak at the Olympics. There are 11,000 Olympians coming to Tokyo, and thousands of support staff. And in Tokyo yesterday, in the city, there were 1,008 new COVID cases, just over 1,000 new cases in the city of Tokyo yesterday. And I know economically, I mean, so much money is being spent to get these Olympians there. So much is being spent and made on television rights and everything, merchandising, everything associated with the Olympics. I know they will do everything they can to make these Olympics happen. But Shannon, if there is a major outbreak, and let's pray to God there's on every level, just most importantly on a human level, that there's not a major outbreak at the Tokyo Olympics. But you got to wonder, and I know there's already been a lot of people and a lot of experts and a lot of medical people in Tokyo who were fighting hard to say, let's don't even do it. But my God, can you imagine a worst case scenario if early on or in the middle of these Tokyo Olympic Games, they had to shut it down because things got so bad with the coronavirus?
You mentioned the money and the advertisers. I saw this morning that Toyota has pulled out their commercial from airing during the games, and that they're not going to their heads are not going to be attending the opening ceremony. And then you just think, okay, they get COVID, they have to stay there, right? It's not like they can put them on a plane and send them home. They have to
You're right.
quarantine. They have to get out of that quarantine. So then they're putting possibly more money into these athletes that are having to stay because they've been diagnosed or contacted or whatever it may be. Because right now the rule is you can show up X amount of days before your event, and then you have to leave X amount of days after your event. You cannot just stay and lollygag and hang around the whole time like you usually can. So it's quite something. And I want to pose this to you. If it does start to happen, that we start to see little pockets of outbreaks here and there, do they cancel the whole thing, or do they start taking pieces away? Like right now, the opening ceremony, as great as it is, and
Yeah.
as much as I love it, it feels like that is unnecessary at
Yes.
this point.
Sadly.
Nations, and I know, again, they've sunk a ton of money into that and all the design and everything that goes in, but and putting all those like world leaders and heads of agencies and whatever, like putting all those people in one place, I mean, that seems like if there was going to be a super spreader at this event, that would be it.
You're being very pragmatic, Shannon, but I think you're right. If you started to look at this and say, what can we do without? We want to pull off these games, but
Right.
What can we do without?
You get rid of like preliminary rounds of events. You just go straight for best of one.
It's a great question. I'm looking on our live video stream right now, Shannon, and we're being joined by our good friend Taro Kotani from Tokyo, who writes on public opinion polls in Japan, at least 50% have said the Olympics need to be canceled or postponed. Now, we've heard the International Olympic Committee said a couple of months ago that if these Olympics had to be canceled, they would not be postponed. I mean, they were postponed a year ago. These are the 2020 Tokyo Olympics being played in 2021. If they got there from what I'm hearing, Shannon, there will be no postponement. If they need to be canceled, that's it. We're done.
Yeah, you can't have the 2020 Olympics being played in summer of 2022, 6 months after the winter 2022 Olympics.
Yeah, my goodness.
A year and a half before the next summer Olympic. Like, no.
It is a story to keep an eye on, and let us hope and let us pray that the Olympics come off as planned, and every athlete and every delegation and every country and every sport gets to play its sport and determine its Olympian and Olympic champions. Coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Get you going for the week. This day in sports history, sports birthdays, and then a huge 8 o'clock hour. Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. She was there for Big 12 Media Days last week. She'll have the latest on not only the Longhorns football team, but a big weekend for Longhorns basketball as well. And her Super Bowl picks. We will confront her about her Super Bowl picks that appeared in Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, of which Shannon and I each have in our hot little hands this morning. Andy Everett, our golf guru and the voice of UTSA athletics, just after 8:30 to talk British Open and college football as well. Lots coming at you. Dave Ayler making the show go. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Brian Castano, you got me all excited thinking you were the boxer. Welcome anyway, though, man. Good to see you. Beth Settle, good morning. Foamfoot 420 says, with the rise of COVID-19, do you think we'll still have NFL fans in the stands this year? I got a really bad feeling this is going to go south once again because we've got such a significant number of people in our country who refuse to get vaccinated. And what's really ridiculous to me is that it's been turned into a political thing. And the vast majority of epidemiologists and doctors and scientists, like 98% of them, will tell you it is real. It is not political. It is deadly. And oh, by the way, of those current cases and of those who have died in the month of June and July thus far, 99% of them were not vaccinated, which is sad that there's a way to survive this and people are choosing either based on conspiracy theories they're hearing or misinformation or political dogma not to get vaccinated. And therefore keeping the engine moving to spread this thing. All right, I'm going to go get some coffee. Because I need it. I needs the caffeine. Oh! Yeah, I am fully vaccinated as well. I mean, think of any other major disease for which we have vaccines. Polio. You know, what if, half the country said, nope, I don't believe it. I'm not getting the polio vaccine for my child. Diphtheria. I mean, so many diseases we have eradicated with vaccines and with medicine and with science. And, now we live in an era where science is uncool. The earth is flat. The moon landing was fake, according to people. I'll be right back. Just made it. Welcome back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler on a Metal Monday wearing his Metallica t-shirt, making the show go. Coming up just after 8 o'clock, one of the foremost experts and reporters on the Texas Longhorns, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. She was at Big 12 Media Days, so the latest on the Longhorns football team, Coach Sark, Bijan Robinson, and others, plus big Longhorns news involving Chris Beard, the new head coach from Texas Tech. Of course, he's a Texas alum, but some big news involving the basketball team over the weekend. Plus, we'll talk NFL football with Taylor, including her Super Bowl picks. In fact, we can just go through that page on Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, Shannon, when we have Taylor. I think we've also got her Heisman Trophy pick. I believe, I don't have it in front of me. I think most of them, like 12 reporters, most of them did pick Spencer Rattler of OU.
Which
so
isn't too far out there.
No, I mean, he's probably the
Quarterback,
preseason favorite.
plays for a school that does
Got-
okay at football.
Got his own logo, got his own Rattler logo now that he can sell, name, image, and likeness.
I wonder with that, with NIL being such a thing, if that'll start playing a bit of a role in people's mind, right? Like, this guy, look how popular he is compared to these other finalists. Look how much he's ranking in. Look at the deals he has.
Yes. Well, and you got to wonder, might that create a little backlash? It could have, among Heisman Trophy voters who might be old school. If a player is, all things being equal, if a player might be a little too slick and a little too social media with my own Spencer Rattler rattlesnake logo that I'm selling, little rattlesnake on baseball caps, little rattlesnake on t-shirts. I'm Spencer Rattler. So if the voting is close, someone might go, you know what, Rattler boy, I might vote for somebody else. Bijan Robinson for the Heisman.
That's a good name.
Woo!
Heard of him?
Woo! So there's that. Anyway, so that's she's always outstanding. Taylor Estes just after 8 o'clock, and then just after 8:30. We'll dive back into the British Open, the big win by Colin Morikawa. Now, Shannon, lucky for Andy Everett that you did not defend your title. You would have been the 3-time winner of our fantasy golf challenge, in which case I would have had to introduce Andy Everett as former golf guru. Andy Everett will talk with golf guru Shannon Sweeney and myself.
I mean, considering Tanner and I went 2 for 2 out of the 4.
So we may. So should we still strip him of his title as
Just saying. I mean,
the show's golf guru?
Last come out humble he is.
Yeah. Well, yes. Humble yourself, Andy Everett. Bow to Shannon Sweeney and
Right.
Tanner Carlson. Tanner apparently went to a wedding over the weekend. He's not here this morning. I as soon as I walked in the door this morning, after nearly getting killed driving here by the idiot who tried to run me off the road, I thought, all right, I'm going to hear Tanner cackling because he picked Colin Morikawa and he indeed won the British Open. So anyway, Andy Everett, we'll talk more British Open. What's next on the PGA Tour? Olympics. Who does he like in the Olympics? And of course, he's the voice of UTSA athletics. We'll probably talk some college and NFL football with him as well. In a moment, Shannon's salty shakedown. But first, sports birthdays and this day in sports history. On this day in 1910, and I know I'm old, but I wasn't around. I don't remember this. On this day in 1910, Cy Young wins the 500th baseball game of his Hall of Fame baseball career as the Cleveland Naps That's what they're the Naps. What do they take naps? The Cleveland Naps beat the Washington Senators 5-2 in 11 innings. He is the only pitcher to reach that milestone of 500 wins. My God. I wonder if he won the Cy Young Award that year. Cy Young. On this day in 1989, NFL owners vote unanimously to form a new spring league. It's the World League of American Football. They'll play in Europe. They played from 1991 to 2007. When the NFL creates a spring league, and even that league doesn't last, I'm just saying, spring leagues are tough to pull off. Although I still want one because more football is good football. And finally, on this day in 1990, Cincinnati Red Pete Rose is sentenced to 5 months in jail for tax evasion. Pete Rose. Things went south for Pete Rose. That's this day in sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1946, Romanian tennis player Ilie Nastase. They called him Nasty Nastase. He used to get into it with umpires. Used to flip them off, actually. There were photos, and like in the 70s, now, we flip each other off regularly on social media, but it was a big deal back in the 70s when Ilie Nastase was flipping off umpires during tennis matches. He won the U.S. Open in 1972. Ilie Nastase was born in Bucharest, Romania, for those of you scoring at home. Born on this day in 1965, famed American sportscaster at ESPN, beloved Stuart Scott, who passed away in 2015. Stuart Scott, born on this day in 1965 in Chicago, Illinois. And finally, born on this day in 1968, NFL defensive back, won a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 31, Leroy Butler. Happy birthday to Leroy Butler. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, both hands on the wheel if you're driving. And if you're that dirt bag in the SUV who tried to run me off the road earlier this morning, may you burn in hell. You got me a little salty this morning. Here it is. Your salty shakedown.
We all know the statistics of making it to the NFL. They keep shrinking as you keep aging, from Pee-wee to middle school to high school to D1 to NFL to then making that 53-man roster. And then of those guys that make those rosters, even fewer become superstars and household names. Typically when they do, we pronounce their names correctly.
Yeah.
However, it has recently come to our attention that Travis, formerly known as Kelsey, his last name is not in fact Kelsey, sir.
Whoa.
He's allowed people to call him that. He said so on Barstool earlier this week. We'll let you hear it from him.
I got Kelsey and then Kels. My real name is Kels, so I mean, I just kind of roll with the punches.
You may say, this is the first time I'm hearing of this. Why has he not corrected anyone till now? Well, listen to this pregame intro before the AFC Championship in 2020, where they faced the Tennessee Titans.
K-E-L-C-E. Kels.
He spelled it out for us, Chris. No one picked
Wow.
up on that.
My goodness.
And I haven't been paying that close attention, but when you get a Thursday night game or a Sunday night game and when they flip sides of the ball and they go through the roster of who's on the field for those starting 11,
Yeah.
I don't recall him whether or not he was saying Kels or Kelsey.
That's true.
But how have we not picked up on this? I mean, Patrick Mahomes' mother was very quick to let everyone know it's not Pat, it's Patrick. Okay, and everyone changed their ways. Now, Kelsey or Kels, whatever we're going to call him from now on, he said he doesn't care. He actually said in an interview that he has been called Kelsey by his dad, but that everyone on his dad's side, where his last name comes from, goes by Kels. So what are we to do here, Chris? I mean, so many guys sport his jersey. I think, doesn't he have a brother also in the NFL? Like this, for a guy whose name gets called that often, I think we should be pronouncing his name correctly. Travis Kels.
Well, how weird that his dad called him Kelsey. I mean, that's your dad. who has the same name, which is Kels.
Right.
So your
But
dad
maybe
calls.
that's why they switched it up, right?
That could be.
Like he's the E on the end. Okay, Kelsey.
Well, and I've told you this, Shannon, going way back, two of my favorite dudes who actually changed the pronunciation of their names, Tony Dorsett at Pittsburgh and growing up in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, was Tony Dorsett. And late in his college career, he said, no, call me Dorsett. And Joe Theismann grew up Joe Theismann, but he wanted to win the Heisman Award trophy. So he at Notre Dame, he said, call me Joe Theismann, not Theismann. And I think he did win the Heisman. So, but hey, man, Kelsey needs to tell us what he wants.
Right.
If you want to be Kels, I'll call you Kels.
Right. Don't tell us that we can do either way, because
No.
then you're going to start confusing people, because some people will say, well, this is your God-given name. We're going to say Kels. Other people are like, we've already got Kelsey in our heads. It's what we've all come to know and love. So Kelsey it is. Just pick one, and we will respectfully follow those rules. So, and you got, training camp is starting soon, buddy. So you need to hurry up.
Come on,
All right.
Kels.
From one superstar to another, LeBron had a pretty big weekend, not in the basketball world because he's not playing in the finals, but he did have his Space Jam movie officially released, and lots of people saw it. It got $37 million domestically, 55 worldwide. So not horrible for a movie that was panned by critics. And then interestingly enough, he showed up to Game 5 of the NBA Finals to cheer on his good friend Chris Paul. He said, listen, Chris Paul came to watch me play in my first final, so I'm returning the favor. Of course, he sat courtside. And of course, to draw extra attention, he brought a bottle of his own tequila, Lobos 1707, and he had it under his seat. Someone took notice. They tweeted it. They said they let him bring that in. And LeBron said, let's go with that. So he snuck it in, but he's also LeBron James, so who knows how much sneaking he really had to do. What I love about it is not only was he just then plugging his own tequila, why not make it about him as much as possible? But of his tequilas, there are 3 versions. He brought the most expensive version, which if you were to go to Specs or Twin Liquor or whatever you go to, it's going to run you $165.
Whoa.
Not the $45 bottle, not the $50 bottle. The most expensive bottle. He just had it placed under his seat, had his legs open during the game, sitting courtside on the TV side so all could see. I mean, come on, dude.
He broke the law. That actually, he broke the law. You're not allowed to bring alcohol into an establishment that sells out. You can't bring your own unless that's specifically mandated. What I always say about LeBron, because people dog him, I go, hey man, he's a great husband, he's a great father, he's never been in trouble with the law. Now I gotta say, yeah, but he broke the law. He brought tequila into the NBA finals.
I mean, this is kind of the stuff that he's done before when he almost plays with the line of the law, because I remember in 2013 he went to a Jay-Z and JT concert in Miami, and he had a police escort to and from, which again is not a valid reason to have a police escort. And then he does something like this. I didn't realize it was breaking a law. I just knew, you're not.
I think it is.
You're not supposed to bring your own whatever. I mean, sometimes water bottles are allowed, right?
But you can't bring. I think it's illegal. I'm pretty confident it's illegal.
For all the good he does, he makes it so hard to continue being impressed by that when he does this in his off time. I'm ready for I'm glad LeBron isn't on Team USA, because we may not have to hear from him for at least a week or 2.
That's true. For those of you who don't like him. Yep. There you go.
All right, so we've got LeBron bringing tequila, so I guess we'll see what he brings to Game 6. Should he show up, or maybe he's done his part and he's got enough pub for his tequila. All right, we've got some bad news out of baseball. Of course, you mentioned earlier that there was a shooting at the
Washington Nationals Park. The gunfire. Nobody hurt, but guns going off. Yeah.
Terrible to think about. And then we had the Boston Red Sox versus the New York Yankees, that rivalry continuing. And unfortunately, a Yankees fan threw a baseball at the back of Red Sox outfielder Alex Verdugo, who maybe suffers from vertigo. I don't know, but yeah, Verdugo. We found out later that Alex had been, he tossed a ball into the stands that he meant to throw to a Red Sox fan. This Yankees fan intercepted the ball. And I guess he was getting some backlash from people saying, throw it back to him so he can throw it again. For whatever reason, he decided to throw it back in the middle of the game. And we're getting reports now from fans who were next to him that he didn't mean to throw it at his back. It just happened to hit him in the back.
Sorry.
But I also that's the time in the middle of the game, you're going to do it then. But anyway, he hit him in the back. The game was paused for a while because, and rightfully so, Alex was very upset. He had to be calmed down. He just got hit in the back by a ball by a Yankees fan, right? This is a huge rivalry. And typically, tensions are high. Not that high to where they start throwing things at players. But this man has now been banned from all 30 MLB ballparks. I don't know if you get a ban like that, if that means you can't go to ball games or if you're banned from concerts and other activities.
That's a great question.
And we don't know the name, and that's, I think, okay, because we don't want people going after him, especially if this was a mistake. It's a bad mistake to be made. You shouldn't have given in to peer pressure. First of all, you shouldn't have swiped the ball from the Red Sox fan to begin with. Then you wouldn't have put yourself in this situation. But it's been quite the story coming out of New York in that Red Sox series. It's sad when something like that overtakes the actual results of the game. There you have it, a Monday edition of the Salty Shakedown.
Spectacular Salty Shakedown as always. And Shannon, I have now people around him, other Yankee fans, friends of his maybe, saying, oh, he didn't mean to hurt you. You threw the ball at the dude, you hit him in the back. As an example, it's unacceptable. No, you don't throw anything onto the field. And even if, and I doubt it because you're a Yankee fan, so by definition, you're probably a dirtbag. I'm just saying. This guy threw the ball, hit Verdugo in the back during play. Even if it wasn't during play, it ain't right. You got to make an example out of this guy. I absolutely, totally support a lifetime ban from all Major League Baseball stadiums. Good. And people need to know it's like, oh, I didn't mean to. It's like, what? You're going to shoot somebody and go, I didn't mean to shoot you. I didn't mean to hit you with a baseball. I didn't mean to sock you in the face. I didn't mean to run Chris Duel off the road this morning. You did it. You're guilty. There should be a penalty to pay.
Yeah, we've had tons of people throw like inflatable trash cans right in things at Astros, but no one has ever been ballsy enough to throw a baseball at their back. That's too much.
Agree.
Too much. How dare you, sir?
Adios, muchacho. Exactly. We'll not see you again at a Major League Baseball game. And one less Yankee fan at any baseball game is actually a good thing.
Victory!
Yes. Can we rack that number up a little higher, please? Can we ban thousands of Yankee fans? That would make me feel better. All right. Hopefully David Munoz, our resident Yankee fan around here, isn't listening. We'll ban you, David Munoz. I'm in a cranky mood this morning. You're banned. Coming up, Taylor Estes of Horns 24/7 joins us. Lots coming at you. Keep it right here on the Chris Duel Show. Yeah, Robert, the Jazz guy. David Munoz is a Yankees fan, which I've always found a little strange because he grew up in San Antonio. And I think he grew up as a Houston Astros fan. So, Jason Paniagua, Sincere McCormick, you're talking about the UTSA running back. Oh, I got to pull out my Texas football. There it is. Dave Campbell's Texas football. Picking Texas to go 7-5. Let's see. Taylor Estes, who is about to join us. She did pick Spencer Rattler to win the Heisman. She picked Alabama to win the national championship. She picked Chiefs over the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. She picked the Cowboys record at 9-8. She picked the Texans record at 7-10. Very generous for the Texans record. In fact, that's the highest record anybody had for the Texans. Robert, are you saying A&M's going to win the national championship? Nobody picking. They have how many writers here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. None of them pick the Aggies to win the SEC. Most of them obviously pick Alabama, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pick Georgia. So 9 pick Alabama. 6 pick Georgia to win the SEC. Everybody picks OU to win the Big 12 except for 2. 2 pick Iowa State. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 pick UTSA to win Conference USA, which is kind of cool. Page 93. Yeah, there's so many darn pages in this thing. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yes, 15 writers. All right. All right.
I had no idea. Thank you for telling me.
Taylor's ready.
Thank you, sir. Wow, that's amazing. If my 93, wait. 53. That's me looking at it. Without reading glasses. Shannon, did you hear me? Did you hear it's 53? I guess she's not hearing me. Can you hear me, Shannon? She can't hear me. All right.
This is the Chris Duel Show. Now, Chris Duel.
It is a new week, and it is a huge sports week with the Olympics beginning, with the Dallas Cowboys training camp getting underway. We're 2 days away from that. Wednesday will be the State of the Cowboys address from Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and head coach Mike McCarthy. The NBA champion will be determined this week as early as Tuesday night. That'll be game number 6 at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, as the Bucks will try to win it in game 6. If they don't, it'll go to game 7 later in the week. And as we begin this week, lots going on with the Texas Longhorns, both the football program and big developments over the weekend in basketball. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And when you talk Texas Longhorns, one of the greatest sources for Texas Longhorns information is Taylor Estes, who is the managing editor for Horns 24/7. She was with the Longhorns this past week at Big 12 Media Days. Taylor Estes, welcome back. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you doing?
Very good. What was the Big 12 Media Days experience for the first time with Coach Steve Sarkisian? How did he perform at Big 12 Media Days, in your opinion?
I think he did really well. I think Steve Sarkisian has, said all of the right things in his, few type of public appearances. This was the biggest one, obviously, since, with COVID things opening back up, we actually get to talk to him face to face. So that was definitely good to have him, be able to talk to him, talk to the players. But I think overall, he's learned from Nick Saban. He's learned from Pete Carroll. He knows how to really manage, media and how to really present a positive outlook on the state of Texas football. So I think overall, for his first Big 12 Media Days, he definitely did well. And I think a lot of people were impressed with what he had to say.
Taylor, I agree with you. I think he's been very impressive. I think he said all the right things, which was something that Tom Herman apparently found pretty hard to do during his time here. But be honest, what was your reaction when he did say you can't just sprinkle some fairy dust? Because that's something we've heard before as Texas fans, and it was a bit of a shocker and a bit of a relapse moment.
Yeah, that and then the winning is hard comment was something that I think a lot of media were like, oh no, like we're having PTSD flashbacks from the those type of comments from Tom Herman. I kind of laughed it off. I think the fairy dust comment was one of those things that, I think pretty common saying. It just so happened that the former head coach of Texas used that one time before in his first media day experience too. The winning is hard thing, I know a lot of fans heard Steve Sarkisian say that and think about when Tom Herman said that after the Maryland loss, using that as an excuse. That's not what Steve Sarkisian was doing. He was talking about all of the aspects of winning that goes, it being hard in the offseason, everything that you have to do in the offseason in order to win games when it matters most. So there were some Hermanisms, I think, that a lot of people may have been a little turned off by, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, if you start saying, using it as an excuse the way that Tom Herman would use those types of comments as an excuse, then we have a little concern. But right now, I don't think that's the case.
And Taylor, when I heard the fairy dust comment, my first thought was that was maybe a tongue-in-cheek throwback, a reference to the Tom Herman era. I mean, did you see it that way, or was it just a common phrase that he just happened to say?
I didn't see it that way, but I did talk to some people that thought maybe him saying that and then him saying the winning is hard was kind of a dig a little bit Tom Herman. I don't see Steve Sarkisian as that type of person. I just don't think, I honestly don't think he cares that much about what happened at Texas under Tom Herman or anything like that. So I didn't see it that way, but I do know there have been other people that did think, oh, maybe this was, kind of a shot at Tom Herman. Who knows? I mean, I think this is just why the offseason is always funny. You never know what's going to be the headline that comes out of a big media day that is either this or horns down. That seems like what's making headlines is like, are we talking about football? What's going on here? Just a prime offseason talk for sure.
Well, talking Diggs and football, Lincoln Riley started his presser by saying he was excited to be back at his second home. And it kind of felt like maybe Sark's response was something when he mentioned that he'd been to 4 national championship games just in his tenure. So he feels like he's in a good spot. You've got predicted OU to win the Big 12 this year. So where do you see Texas and all of that? I know sometimes people say, well, during that Red River rivalry shootout, whatever you want to call it, game, the team that wins that typically doesn't end up winning in a rematch, right? They usually go 1-1. So do you hopefully have Texas winning that Red River shootout and then at least appearing in the Big 12 championship? How do you see the season going?
I think that's a little premature to say right now because I mean the reality is Texas has a lot of experience and a lot of talent coming back to the roster, but they have whoever is going to be the starting quarterback is going to be the first time that they're starting a college football game, whether it's Casey Thompson or Hudson Card. And anytime that you have a question like that, at quarterback, especially in a year where there's a whole new system, a whole new coaching staff, pretty much new coaches at every single position, there's going to be it's more realistic to probably expect some learning curve a little bit this year. I think that Texas has the talent definitely to take on Oklahoma, in October. I don't see Texas as a Big 12 title team this year. I think Iowa State is a really, really good team. I think it's probably going to be a rematch of last year's Big 12 championship game if everything, plays out. Now, if there's a major injury to either one of those teams, whether that is going to obviously impact the outcome of the season. But yeah, I think that, I know a lot of Texas fans want to see a Big 12 title appearance in year one. The reality is that's just really not how it's been the case at Texas. I mean, Mac Brown didn't win a Big 12 title for 8 years or something like that. So I think that, I think Texas can definitely improve on last season. I think it's way too premature to say that even at this point that they're a 10-win team or a Big 12 title contender.
We're talking Texas Longhorns with Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. And Taylor, you talked about the inexperience at quarterback with both Casey Thompson and Hudson Card. So presumably, especially early, the Texans or the Longhorns might lean on running backs. In this case, Bijan Robinson. He spoke at Big 12 Media Days. Your thoughts on Bijan Robinson? How did he conduct himself, and what do you expect from him at running back this season for the Horns?
I thought Bijan is a great representative of the University of Texas. He is, a great kid. He just says all the right things, and he's a stud too. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't think that's me being biased by calling him that. I think that Bijan's one of the most talented running backs that I've seen come through Texas in my career personally. And I've covered Texas this will be my 10th season. So, Bijan, he has I think that Steve Sarkisian kind of summed it up best. He kind of resembles Reggie Bush a little bit in his, one-cut ability. He is just so elite when he has the ball in his hands. And honestly, the best thing I think for a first-time starting quarterback is having a solid running game. There's no doubt that Bijan can provide that, and Steve Sarkisian has spoken to Bijan about he's going to have an increased workload. That's probably going to be music to Texas fans' ears, considering he was kind of put a little bit on a pitch count last year throughout the year until the end of the season. But I think that, Bijan's definitely going to be the face of the offense, especially going into the year. That can obviously change, if the quarterback play really improves. But I think what you can expect to see this year from Bijan Robinson is a much heavier workload. And, Texas hasn't had a 1,000-yard running back, since Deontay Foreman in 2016. I think that Bijan's going to definitely be a 1,000-yard running back at least this year for the first time, in a long time, obviously.
Taylor, I feel pretty solid for the running back room this year at Texas. Wide receiver room, I'm still not really sure who our number one guy is going to be, but I did find it interesting to see Jake Smith enter that transfer portal and then go to USC so quickly. That seems to be the way players who are leaving are going. Do you have any insight as to why he left or why USC was his pick? Chris Duel here is an USC alum, so he's okay with it, more so than I am.
Yeah, shoot, this is the transfer portal just seems to be perfect going out to Southern California for the Longhorns there. I think, Jake Smith had a really up and down time since he got to Texas. He, just never really could get things going. And, he suffered multiple injuries during that time. And I think that, he is a West Coast type of kid. He's from Arizona. So I think that the distance definitely did not help him. I think he had a little bit of a tough time under Tom Herman. And, I think sometimes kids just need a fresh start. And this was a good place, a good landing place for him. And it probably helps that there is some familiarity that he has with the USC coaching staff, even though, his position coaches and the ones that recruited him weren't on staff. But still, they have Todd Orlando out there. They have Brian Carrington out there. They have Craig Niver out there. So I think the familiarity of that staff and the relationship that he had built with Brian Carrington probably most, during the recruiting process is a big reason why he probably chose the Trojans.
Taylor, for our listeners, in addition to being managing editor for Horns 24/7, you're also a contributor to the Bible, as it's called, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, which is so cool. Ever since I was a kid, whenever this magazine hits the stands, A, I know football season is right around the corner, and B, I got to get my hands on it because it's such a great magazine. However, when it did come out, Shannon and I immediately, we flipped to the prediction for the Texas Longhorns, and the magazine, not you, but the magazine predicts the Longhorns to go 7-5 in their coverage, which Shannon and I both thought was a little bit low. To me, the starting point would be about an 8-4 season, hopefully 9-3 or better if things go really, really well. Now, you just mentioned for you, the expectation is not necessarily winning the Big 12 championship the first year out for Steve Sarkisian, but what do you think of Dave Campbell's magazine, at least in the article that covered the Longhorns, picking them to go 7-5? Do you agree with that? Do you think maybe that's a little low? What do you expect as far as a one-loss record for this Longhorns team this year?
I think it's a safe assumption just because of the way that, first-year head coaches at Texas have kind of gone. Tom Herman went, 7-5, I believe, in his first year, too. And so I think that, the biggest thing that I think that Texas needs to show is them being able to handily win games this year. And I think that's something that Steve Sarkisian really needs to focus on because even going back, Texas was successful in some seasons under Tom Herman, but it just seemed like they never blew anybody out. It always seemed like, one possession game. And that's fine if you end up on the right side of that. But, I think that Texas fans, especially, I think, want to see these players, these talented players, really, really show up on game day and really just, dominate the teams that they're supposed to dominate. Maybe win a game that maybe they shouldn't win. I think that Texas does have a tough schedule this year. Opening against Louisiana is definitely not a cupcake type of game at all. And then going to Fayetteville, to play Arkansas the following week. I know Arkansas hasn't been great, but still, there is a historical rivalry there between Texas and Arkansas. So, I think 8 wins is probably what I would say would be fair assumption. Maybe, 9-4 with a bowl win, that could be, I guess, something. But, I think overall, honestly, I think they just have to see week-to-week improvement in year one in Steve Sarkisian, and that really was not the case of what we saw from Tom Herman. We see 1 week they would, look really impressive, and the next week barely skate out a win or lose a game, like losing, back-to-back openers against Maryland. I mean, that's not the way that this should go at all. But I think an 8-win season is a fair assumption. If they win more, then I think Texas fans should be really, really excited about that. It's just really hard for me to predict anything like a Big 12 title finish in a year one.
Coach Stark definitely alluded to what you were speaking to there of keeping things consistent and progressing throughout the season and not going backwards after a game 2 weeks ago that may have been great and then falling short at another one. Speak to like this almost on-campus rivalry we have now. Not so much rivalry; they're not going head to head because they're obviously in two different sports. But Coach Stark and Chris Beard, their first year here, they're both recruiting, and then Chris Beard is just doing exactly what he said he would do. He's got 6 of the top 31 transfers already coming to Texas. I mean, is this, have you seen anything like this? It's insane.
Yeah, I have not. I mean, we had heard everything about how good of a recruiter Chris Beard is. And I think, I kind of had higher expectations for him than Shaka Smart, obviously. But what he has done since he's been on the job, I mean, he got hired, April 1st. So he's barely even gotten his feet wet as the head coach of Texas, yet has been so successful in the transfer portal. And you need that in basketball. It helps to have a little bit of experience, and a lot of times it's hard to come by that because a lot of these guys will go 1 year and then enter the NBA draft. So I think that what he's been able to do has been phenomenal, especially in the transfer portal. And I also think that Steve Sarkisian has done a fantastic job in the transfer portal, bringing in guys like Ben Davis from Alabama and Ray Thornton from LSU, Obi Agofu from Notre Dame, Keelan Robinson from Alabama. I mean, there's been a lot of talent added to the Texas football roster as well as the Texas basketball roster from the transfer portal. But overall, there's no doubt to, give the best props to Chris Beard. He's going to have to show it on the court. And I think that the better he does in recruiting this way, the higher the expectation is. But he does not seem like a guy who is going to be afraid of high expectations. He talked about that in his opening press conference after he was hired. And I think that, Texas basketball could be on to something special. I think I'm a little hesitant to, I see some people say that they're going to be possibly a Final Four or Elite Eight type of team. We haven't seen that, within the last number of years at Texas. So it's hard for me to predict that. But if Chris Beard keeps this going the way it's going, I think that Texas basketball could really be turning the corner here soon in the near future.
She is Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. And because Taylor, as you talk about the way Chris Beard is handling recruiting and transfers in the transfer portal, and seeing how the transfer portal has really impacted basketball programs around the country and can really turn around a basketball program quicker than it can a football program. While you say you're not ready to say Final Four or Elite Eight necessarily for Chris Beard in year number 1 for the Texas Longhorns in basketball, do you think the expectation certainly is tournament appearance and probably at least a couple of wins, go relatively deep into the tournament, hopefully a Sweet 16?
I think that's a fair expectation to have. I mean, Texas hasn't won an NCAA tournament. They didn't win a single one under Shaka Smart, and that I think that you have to at least get out of the first weekend of the tournament. I think that would be for sure what everyone would expect of Chris Beard this year. And honestly, he could be putting together an Elite Eight or a Final Four talent roster. I mean, the guys that he's added to his team, I mean, think about when he took over. People were saying, is he going to have a team to coach? Because that's how many people had left Texas. So I think that, they didn't sign, they had one signee that was technically a Texas Tech transfer coming out of high school. So I think that, if this talent can really show up on the court, it absolutely could be that type of team. But overall, I think they have to have at least a couple of wins in the tournament in year 1 for fans to be starting to get really excited. I think maybe a Sweet 16 appearance would be, should be considered a successful thing or a season, for Chris Beard in year 1, which is something that we have not been able to say about Texas basketball in nearly a decade. So yeah, I think that he's got things going in the right direction. I think for sure, a Sweet 16 appearance would be considered a successful season in year 1 for him.
Taylor, since name, image, and likeness has taken off, I mean, it took off so quickly. It took less than 24 hours for players to start announcing some of their new deals. Bijan Robinson, a huge guy for Texas, gets one with Raising Cane's just on MLK there. How have you seen Texas kind of adjust to how they may be doing their recruiting? I know they've got some sort of special guidance now that they are assisting players and helping them build their brands. How has that played into recruiting?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a huge part of it. I think it's probably a little bit too soon to see exactly how it has impacted recruiting. I don't know if it has just yet, just because I mean it's only been a few weeks since these name, image, likeness laws took effect. Went into effect on July 1st. So I think that it's going to for sure play a huge role in recruiting, and understandably so. I mean, these student athletes bring in millions and millions of dollars to universities just based off their talent. And if they, are able to be a top player and then plus make a lot of money, that's only going to help the future of Texas football. And I think that Bijan Robinson is probably the best example of it right now, of somebody who has the stardom already. And he's, only played one season. If he can continue to get these NIL deals and then show up on Saturdays, in the fall and play outstanding, then I think that that's going to sell itself in recruiting. You probably don't even have to talk much about it because he already has, as you mentioned, the deal with Raising Cane's. His cameo appearance fee has gone up pretty much every week. And one thing that he told us, I was kind of interested to hear this, he doesn't actually set that number. Cameo sets the number of what, his shout outs would be. So that was interesting to hear. But even Cameo sees that Bijan Robinson has, some stardom and following, that he's worth, a higher dollar value for the shout outs that he does there. So I think that it's definitely going to play a huge role in recruiting down the stretch, especially. Right now, I would say it's probably kind of a wait and see approach, but Texas does have someone that they could sell, in the recruiting aspect with Bijan Robinson. And I think that the more players that they can get like that, the better it's going to be in the future, and the more likely chance that they're going to be in with some of the, top talent, especially in the state of Texas.
She's Taylor Estes of Horns 24/7. And Taylor, I'm looking at the predictions page in Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. 15 writers with a variety of predictions. Among them, you have Alabama winning the national championship. You've got Spencer Rattler winning the Heisman Trophy for Oklahoma. You predict the Cowboys record at 9-8. I guess with a 17-game season, they can't go 8-8, which is what they often do. But at 9-8, I know a few of the other writers have the Cowboys winning 10 games. But it doesn't look like you're feeling like the Cowboys are going to have a very stellar football season this year.
No, with them. It's just obviously last year was different with Dak Prescott going out with that injury. I think that it's going to obviously be dependent on how well he can return from that injury. And it sounds like he's doing well in the rehab process of it. But, my husband's a Cowboys fan, and I feel like he kind of has the battered Cowboys fan. And so I did give him a little bit of an edge, like, I'll give them a winning record in this prediction here instead of, I guess we can't go 500. But I think that, it just doesn't make sense. I feel like the Cowboys have everything in place to be a successful organization. It just seems like they just continue to kind of stumble over their own feet. So until I see otherwise, I'm definitely more of a, show me, don't tell me type of person. So until I see otherwise from the Cowboys, it's going to be hard for me to pick them to win double-digit games.
Taylor Estes is a great follow on Twitter. Everything Longhorns, all sports, college sports. She's on Twitter at Taylor Estes 24/7. Be sure to follow her. Taylor, always outstanding. Great coverage all the time. Thanks so much for taking the time with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, y'all.
Absolutely. Taylor Estes. Go follow her on Twitter. And by the way, her Super Bowl pick, Shannon, she's got Chiefs over the Buccaneers. So a rematch, Mahomes versus Brady. And this time Mahomes gets the win in the Super Bowl, according to Taylor.
I don't hate it.
Yeah. I mean, that
Cowboys, but other than that, I don't hate it.
That would be a huge Super Bowl, a rematch. And clearly, if you pick anybody else in the NFC with everybody coming back for the Buccaneers, you're going against it. And who can pick against the Chiefs and Travis Kelce this year? My goodness.
Yeah, Kelce.
Kels is going to be huge.
Favorite.
I
guy.
think.
Favorite.
Coming up, Andy Everett. Is he our former golf guru after his performance the last few times in our fantasy golf challenge? We will see if he has been humbled. He may not have been. And will Sincere McCormick, running back for UTSA, give Spencer Rattler a run for his money for the Heisman Trophy? That and a whole lot more coming up. We're with you till 9. It's the Chris Duel Show.
Hey, Chris, you got a couple of minutes after the show? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be like 2 minutes. We may have a scheduling problem here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
I want to get a heads up, and so we can start thinking about what we want to do.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And I'll have Abba coming back for Andy.
Okay. Yeah, Tracy Bogert, I would certainly pull for. I would pull for Brady if it were a rematch. Robert, I don't know what you're saying about Rick Barry. You mean see him shooting? I did see him shooting free throws on YouTube, like a free throw competition. Underhand as he always did. Yeah, he's he's like late 70s and was like nailing all of his free throws. Wow, today is Tanner Carlson's birthday. I did not know that. I just saw that on Facebook.
Andy's ready to go.
Thank you, sir. And who are you playing?
Abba.
Okay, cool.
Dancing Queen.
Beautiful. Very cool, Robert. The Iceman, George Gervin, coaching against Rick Barry. That's pretty classic. Yeah, David Garcia, I am the most psyched for Cowboys. Very nice, Tracy. Jesse Martinez wants to know about the rent-free raccoons. Yeah, Jesse, I saw what you wrote earlier. We might grab Taro at one point, or maybe more than one point, to see what his perspective is from Tokyo. He was in here earlier this morning on the live feed. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. ABBA is the band. Dancing Queen is the song. And our golf guru, at least he's been our golf guru until recently, the voice of UTSA Athletics, Andy Everett. Andy, how are you doing on this Monday morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good. I was I had told Shannon, going into our fantasy golf competition for this weekend, Shannon had won 2 in a row. And if she won a 3rd in a row, Andy, I was considering maybe we were going to have to call Shannon Salty Sweeney our golf guru. How did you feel about your performance in the British Open?
Well, I think any of these tournaments, it's just kind of you take 20 names, you throw them in a pot, and you grab 2 of them, and 1 or 2 of those 20 for each of us are going to probably be in the top 20. And I think that's the difference between the PGA Tour and professional golf and, say, the NCAA tournament. When someone wins a 15 seed, beats a 2, that's news, because it's usually a directional school from a conference you've never heard of beating Duke or Kentucky or North Carolina. But in the PGA Tour, the 100th guy in the world is just as good as the first guy in the world. He just doesn't do it as often. And then I think Colin Morikawa obviously played the best golf of anyone, and really is one of the best ball strikers. So, congrats to Shannon. She's the champion golfer of the year for Ticket 760, but we'll be back next year.
Well, and actually, Tanner Carlson, Andy, had Colin Morikawa, and I saw on Facebook today is Tanner's birthday. I didn't even know until seconds ago on Facebook. So a happy birthday to Tanner. Go ahead, Shannon.
Andy, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about Mr. Colin Morikawa. We know that he is now 2 of 8 when appearing in majors, which is pretty spectacular at the young age of 24. We know there will never be another Tiger, but we kind of had these talks when Jordan Spieth, right, went on his run and he was younger than he is now. And how do you compare those two guys? Because, of course, they were kind of battling out up until the end when Jordan kind of let some go, and obviously had a bad ending to his day on Saturday.
Well, if I could take Jordan Spieth and Colin Morikawa in a scramble, I would never lose because you have the best putter on the planet and you have the best ball striker on the planet. And when either one of them ball strikes or putts like the other guy does, then typically that person wins. Morikawa has had a lot of experimenting with different types of putters, different types of grips, and is not considered even a top 25 putter. Now, one of the things about the Open Championship is that the greens are usually slower because everything is right there on the water, right there on the ocean. And if the wind starts to blow 15, 20 miles an hour and you had PGA Tour greens, you'd have to stop the tournament. Ball wouldn't stay on the greens. So they're a little bit slower. They're a little bit easier to putt usually if you can get the speed down. And Morikawa was spot on putting the golf ball all week long. I thought Jordan lost the tournament on Saturday when he bogeyed 17 and 18 from the middle of the fairway. And I know a lot of times Jordan gets a little bit greedy and tries to go for flags that are kind of sucker pins. And as well as he putts from outside 20 feet, I don't think he ever needs to go at that because he's going to make a lot of those long putts. I think it was about a month ago, and I haven't been able to research this stat, but I believe it was Donnie Pepper who said it on one of the CBS broadcasts a few weeks ago, and that is the average PGA Tour pro makes one putt a round that's longer than 13 feet. And Jordan does it 3 times per round on the average. So as long as Jordan's putting the ball well, and he putted well all week, he's going to be in contention. And Morikawa is going to do it with his iron game, and if he puts well, he's probably going to win.
Andy Everett, our golf guru and the voice of UTSA Athletics, joining us. Andy, what's the next big thing in the PGA? Do we focus on the Olympics now, or what is your focus golf-wise with professional golf right now?
My thought on the Olympics has been pretty much the same for the 5 years it's been part of the Olympics. I think it's very important for the growth of golf because there are countries that would not fund a developmental program for golf if it were not an Olympic sport. And especially a lot of the Far Eastern countries, a lot of the third, even second and third world countries, if you will, have just recently started to fund golf because it's an Olympic sport and they're looking for their next great Olympic champion. I don't think it matters who wins other than it's the Olympics and it's pride and it's great for your country and all of that. But in the history of golf, the majors and PGA Tour wins are far more significant than an Olympic win, even though it's something that's very patriotic. And I know all the American golfers are excited to play and want to be on that stage with the gold medal. But right after that, you have a World Golf Championship event in Memphis. And then right after that, you have the FedEx Cup, which will wrap up the season, and the Ryder Cup in mid-September. So you still have a lot to play for. A lot of people vying for the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup Championship. And then the Ryder Cup should be signed up in Wisconsin when we get into late September. And then it starts all over again. And even though there's a bunch of fall events, and I think a lot of them are very important ones in Houston, I think the focus on golf then kicks back in January when we start seeing players in the desert and the 2020, the 2022 part of the 21-22 season getting underway.
Andy, I know to them, maybe the Olympics isn't the biggest event of the year. And then Rio in 2016, Matt Kuchar won bronze for the U.S. But of our U.S. roster this year, Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Alexander Schauffele, and Bryson DeChambeau, Do you think any one of them are capable of winning gold or maybe going 1, 2, and 3?
Well, I think you've got 4 of the best. Matsuyama's going to be in there for Japan. I really haven't seen the roster of who's playing for England, who's playing for Ireland, who's playing for South Africa. But those 4 players are up amongst the elite, probably top 10, 15 players in the world. But as I said earlier, the thing about golf is you could get somebody from South Africa for, I think that Garrett Higo that was a winner a few weeks ago. He's just as talented as Bryson and those guys are. He just is younger and hasn't done it as much. So anybody that wins this with the professionals, I think if it was an amateur event and you had the top college athletes playing, it would be more of a crapshoot as to who wins. But when it comes to or they either have a more, I would say even a bigger favorite amongst the amateur players. But when it comes to the PGA Tour players who are competing, any of them can do it on any given day. And over a 4-day period, it just comes back down to like any other tournament. Who plays well on that golf course? Who's able to avoid the COVID casualties? And who's able to perform the best for 4 days? So it'll be exciting from that standpoint. But I think the Olympic golf starts on Sunday or Monday and ends on Wednesday, and then the following week you're right back out to get ready for the World Golf Championships. So you're going to have a lot of people who have gone from England to Japan to Memphis in a short amount of time.
He is Andy Everett, not only our golf guru and host of the golf show on Ticket 760 Saturdays at 8 a.m., but he is also the voice of UTSA Athletics. And Andy, when I got the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, first of all, Shannon and I were poo-pooing their pick for the Texas Longhorns at 7-5. Then I flipped to their prediction for UTSA, and it blew my mind. I even took a photo of it and texted it to you. Texas Football Magazine says UTSA will go 7-1 in Conference USA and 10-2 overall. You've been saying for weeks now, so many prognosticators are picking UTSA to have a big year. But can you imagine if this team goes 10-2 in their 12-game season? Is this a realistic prediction from your standpoint?
I think it's realistic, and I think the reason why is that pretty much every player that was a senior last year for UTSA, that the coaching staff wanted to return for one more crack at a bowl win and to a conference championship season, they're all back. Now, that still means they have to go perform, and unlike last year, they're not going to sneak up on people. But this is by far the most talented team UTSA's ever had. I think they're the most organized team under Jeff Traylor that they've ever had. It does come back down to quarterback play, whether it's Frank Harris or Josh Atkins or a combination of the two, or maybe even somebody else we haven't heard of. And it also is predicated on them staying injury-free for the most part. And hopefully we don't have to dodge too much COVID this year, even though a lot of Major League Baseball teams and even the NBA's had to deal with that recently. So all of that's a factor. And I think you're going to have luck, even more so now than before, because you've got to stay healthy in two different ways. The nagging soft tissue injuries, and of course, the virus is still going to be a part of our lives for a little bit longer. But I think I saw a few weeks ago, Vegas picked the over and under on UTSA at 8, and no other conference team was given a chance to win more than 7.5. And usually the boys in the desert know what's going on because their lives depend on it. And when I saw that number, I'm not at all surprised that somebody would think that UTSA can win 10 games. I'm not sure how good Western Kentucky is going to be. That's the team that in conference at Bowling Green in mid-October that Dave Campbell picked UTSA to lose. I think the Memphis game will be the most difficult. And I think they've got a great chance to kind of make a statement on a regional television game and an opening night against the Big Ten team at Illinois.
He is Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. Of course, as football season comes, you will hear all of the action called by Andy and company for UTSA Roadrunner football. And of course, as I mentioned, the golf show on Ticket 760, Saturday mornings, 8 a.m., even if you're not in San Antonio, wherever you may be, Austin, anywhere else, you can catch it on the iHeart Radio app. Andy Everett, always outstanding, sir. We will not yet remove your title as golf guru. If Shannon and Tanner Carlson continue their winning ways, we might have to have an arm wrestling competition or something for it.
All right, sounds good.
All right, thanks, Andy. Andy Everett, golf guru, football and basketball play-by-play god. Shannon, Salty Sweeney, we have a poll question today. 3 big events coming at us, at least this week in sports. What do our listeners and viewers most find excitement from?
NBA.
Woo! And I'm a Cowboy freak. I voted Cowboys over the Olympics and the NBA Finals, but that's just me. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Someday football will be in the Olympics and we'll dominate America. Shannon, spectacular Monday. Let's do this again in 21 hours.
I'll be here.
Woo! Dave Taylor, you rockster. You going to be here tomorrow?
I'll be here tomorrow too.
Beautiful. As always, our thanks to Taylor Estes, managing editor of Horns 24/7. Outstanding, as is Andy Everett. You just heard from him. Coming up, you have Dan, Patrick, and company coming your way. You got a little Colin Cowherd after that. Don't forget Mike Taylor this afternoon. And we will get you ready for the NBA Finals tomorrow. Have yourself a great Monday. Adios.